Great. So we're going to start. Let's start lying down today. And any comfortable position lying down on the earth. So as I said, more of a yin style practice today. So longer holds. I have a timer here so that I don't get carried away. And then we'll end with a restorative pose. So let's begin by noticing our breath. Notice the quality of your breath. Notice if maybe it's catching somewhere, and notice where it's flowing. Is your breath shallow or deep? Quick or slow? I invite you to take deep inhales in through your nose, into your diaphragm, allowing it to expand, and long, slow exhales out. Our class today is a little bit quieter and slower. We'll be hearing less from me throughout our class, which is honestly part of the point. Our theme for today's class is the pose begins when we want to leave it. So as we move through our practice, you will notice sensations in your body. Now, if at any point there is a sharp shooting pain or a burning pain, please come out. We don't want bad pain. But with this practice, we're going to feel some sensations in our bodies. It might be a little bit of discomfort. It could be like when you get a massage and it's that delicious discomfort. I invite you to try and stay with that discomfort. 2 more rounds of breath than what you normally would stay in it for. So trying to sit with it and just notice what happens in your mind. So we practice this sitting with the discomfort on our mat so that we can take it off of our mats and into our lives. So there's always discomfort in life, situations we would rather run away from, but we have to stay with. So this is an opportunity to allow you to build some practice and be able to stay a little longer and tolerate a little longer. So again, no pain, but there might be discomfort. All right, so let's make some small movements in fingers and toes. Rolling around wrists and ankles. Okay, perhaps you take a big stretch back here if that feels good for you. All right, and our first pose is our banana shape pose, banana asana. So bringing the arms back behind you, fingernails to the earth, stretching your legs long, stretching your arms long. If you have a shoulder that bothers you, bring that arm back down by your side. Great. And then we'll leave our hips where they are, shifting the shoulders and the head over towards the right corner of the mat. Perhaps sliding the legs over towards the right corner of the mat. If you wish, maybe right hand grabs the left wrist to find a little bit more length here. And if both hips stay on the earth, perhaps the left ankle crosses over the right. Once you find a comfortable place, feel a bit of a stretch, sink and settle into this pose. We're going to stay in this pose for a couple of minutes. So sometimes the challenge of these slower classes is when our mind starts to wander. We can get distracted. Sometimes we start writing out our grocery list or whatever else comes up. Maybe we start to think about a conversation we had with somebody. See if you can come back to your breath. Just noticing the rise and fall. Remember that even though we're holding poses for a little longer today, you can shift, make adjustments if you need to. And if it's a pose that absolutely does not serve your body today, please come out. Come into any resting pose. Maybe you send me a message in the chat instead, and I can offer you something else. Let's find 2 more rounds of breath. And then gently making your way back to center. All right, so before coming to the other side, perhaps noticing, it's like the rebound effect, noticing the difference between the left side and the right side of your body. Any sensations that are coming up. And then when you're ready, arms reach nice and long. Again, this time, shoulders and head come to the left side of the corner, legs to the left side. Find whatever variation feels good for you here. And then soften into the pose. So our yin practice is more about targeting fascia, our connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, rather than muscle. So you may get some stretch from muscle as well, but our main goal is not muscle. We slowly break down the fibers a little bit in our poses, kind of like when we work a muscle to make it stronger. We break down the muscle just a little bit, and then when it heals and repairs itself, it comes back stronger. So 1 more minute on this side. Finding 2 more rounds of breath. And then gently coming back to center. And bringing your arms down by your sides. So we're going to come into a little bit of a variation here of a twist. We're going to bring our feet to the earth, the knees are bent, repositioning your back flat on the earth. But this twist will be slightly different. So feet are going to come wide on the mat, so about mat distance apart. Before we come into the twist, let's just windshield wiper the knees a few times from side to side. Okay, so keeping your feet wide. When your knees come over towards the right side, allow them to stay there. So maybe arms come out if it's comfortable in a T shape or cactus arms, depending on how it feels and depending on space. And exhale, soften. So in this pose, notice where you feel it. It might be a little bit in the back, into the left hip, perhaps down the left thigh. Maybe you turn your head towards the left side. Feels like more of a stretch. And find your breath. Notice as you are still in this pose, any sensations that come up in your body. Can you breathe through the sensations? And it might even just feel good to be here. Maybe there isn't any kind of stretch, depending on your body and depending on what's going on today. Just notice what's happening. No judgment. Come out if there's sharp shooting pain or burning. Try and breathe through it if it's just a little bit of discomfort. Let's find one more round of breath. Head comes back to center, knees come back to center, placing the feet on the earth. Again, windshield wipering your knees from side to side. And the next time your legs come over to the left side, allowing your knees to drop over to the left. You know what I mean. Perhaps you look over towards the right side. So as we move through our practice today, if you get to a point where it feels like maybe breathing through it is a little too challenging, maybe it's hard to focus, I invite you to return to that mantra from the cards that I drew, to your mantra, or maybe someone else's if there is one that resonated with you. An affirmation. I'm calling it a mantra, but affirmation. Or perhaps even saying to yourself, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti means peace. Let's find one more round of breath. And then gently bringing your knees back to center and windshield wipering your knees from side to side. Okay, so listening to your body, if it feels good for you, maybe you hug your knees in toward your chest and rock from side to side. Perhaps you make circles in your knees. Okay, and then in your own time, rolling over to one side, whichever side is calling for you, and then gently making your way up to seated. Okay. So let's start here. We'll come into a caterpillar pose. So in our caterpillar pose, if you have, let's do this. Let's bring the blanket underneath the hips. So folding the blanket, it's going to come underneath your hips so that when you come forward, it will help you a little bit to come forward. So legs are going to come out long. If you have either pillows or blocks, feel free to grab them and place them underneath your knees so that your knees are not coming all the way down to the floor. So legs are going to come out long. I'm going to turn so you can see me a little better. Okay, and we want to be just on the edge of the blanket here. All right. So finding length in your spine, maybe bringing your hands to the earth, fingertips to the earth, sitting up nice and tall, activating both feet to begin. Inhale to lengthen. Bring your arms up towards the sky. And exhale, folding forward, hinging from the hips. Hands come down wherever's comfortable. So if it's comfortable in your low back, feel free to round your spine. Okay, relax your feet. Stay with this pose. With every inhale, perhaps you see if you can send your heart towards your toes. So you're finding length in your spine and then reaching the heart towards the toes. And exhale to soften. In this pose, practice staying with discomfort. What does your mind tell you about these sensations? Is there a way to bring peace into your mind? Whenever you feel ready, slowly walking your hands up along the sides of your body. Come on up to seated. Okay. So any comfortable seated position for you, just for a few rounds of breath. Maybe it's easy seated pose, crisscross applesauce. We're just going to find a little bit of movement here for our spine. So inhale, arms reach up towards the sky. Be careful if your low back is bothering you. Exhale, turn towards the right, arms come down by your sides. And just continue moving with your breath. Inhale to center and exhale over. Just go as far as you feel comfortable. Inhaling to center and exhaling over. So let's go one more time in each direction. And then inhale, come back to center. Exhale, releasing your hands by your sides. We're going to make our way down onto our front body. And let's come into a Sphinx pose here. So in our Sphinx pose, we want to stack our shoulder over top of our elbow. All the wrong body parts were coming into my head. Okay. And then, so we want arms are parallel, stacking over top. So we don't want arms out too wide on the mat or elbows even out too wide on the mat. They come under. Shoulders roll back and down the spine. We're going to reach the legs long, point the toes, reach the legs long behind you, and then place the tops of the feet down onto the earth. Feel free to soften the legs here. So shoulders roll back and down. Maybe you look out ahead. Maybe you tuck your chin. Notice what feels good for you. Is there any way that you can breathe through this pose for 2 more rounds of breath? Know that you can come out if you wish, or if there's sharp pain. But notice if maybe you can hold a little longer through the discomfort. Okay, so if you want, you can stay in Sphinx pose, or walking your arms out in front just a little bit. Spread the fingers, so just like 1 or 2 hand prints. Shoulders roll back and down. Lift the heart. We won't be here for quite as long. Try not to lock out the elbows. Two more rounds of breath. And then slowly coming onto your forearms if you aren't already there, one forearm at a time. Let's place our hands underneath our forehead, stacking hands, bending the knees, and windshield wipering the feet from side to side. Okay, releasing your feet to the earth, and then gently making your way into a tabletop pose. So in your tabletop, I invite you to find any movements that feel good for you. So maybe it's some C shape, cat cow, maybe you come in and out of child's pose. Be nice and gentle with the low back. We're going to find a child's pose here. So if you wish, you can place a blanket underneath your knees for a little bit of extra padding. Let's take a wide knee child's pose. So big toes together, knees apart. You're going to sit your hips back. Arms are going to come out nice and long. So if your forehead doesn't happen to make it all the way down to the earth, feel free to grab something to place underneath your forehead so you can soften. We're going to stay here in child's pose for about a minute, and then I'm going to offer you a variation of a twist. So it'll be up to you if you want to stay in child's or find the twist. Softening your body, soften your arms. Allowing your hips to sink back. Okay, you can stay here, or maybe you find a little bit of it's like thread the needle. So you're going to walk your hands back just a little bit. Coming up to give yourself a little bit of space. And then right arm comes out to the side, scooping the right arm under, shoulder and head come to the earth. So it's a very gentle twist, mostly for the upper back. Then soften the left arm. So reaching the left arm out again, maybe coming up onto the hand, straightening the arm, unraveling yourself, unraveling the right arm, allow it to come forward. And then other side, left arm scoops up, and then comes under. Softening the right arm. Allow your body to sink and settle. Let's find 2 more rounds of breath. If you're in the twist, straightening the right arm out in front, unraveling. We'll make our way here into a tabletop pose. Find any movements you need. And then we're going to come to seated. All right, so our next pose is cobbler pose or butterfly pose. So we're going to bring our feet together, knees apart. And if you wish, depending on your body and what you feel like doing, you have options if you have blocks to perhaps bring the one block between the feet. Kind of hard to see, sorry. Maybe 2 blocks so that you have somewhere for your forehead to come onto when you come forward. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. If you need to place a block underneath the hips because it's too much on one hip or the other, feel free to do so. Or maybe it's a rolled or folded blanket under the hip. So you're going to find length in your spine. Find your sits bones, that comfortable place to sit, sitting up nice and tall. And then on your exhale, folding forward. So kind of like our caterpillar pose, see if you can lead forward from the hips first, keeping the length in the spine. If it feels good for your low back, maybe you round. Find your breath, notice sensations. What sensations are you experiencing when it gets to the point where you want to come out of the pose? Know that you just want to come to your edge and not go beyond it. So there's 2 types of people. We either back out quickly, not people. Sometimes we do one or the other. We want to back out quickly, run away from the situation, or we push ourselves too far. Are you able to sit just at that edge? Not going too far, but also not running away. Know that if you've gotten to the point where you've had enough, it doesn't hurt, you've just had enough, you're likely not alone. Can you breathe through it? Or is there something else you can do to allow you to sit with the discomfort? Find a mantra or affirmation. Maybe you just notice your breath. I know that sometimes it's hard to just sit still. And that's perfectly okay. I invite you to notice if anything has changed from the beginning of this pose. What do you feel now? What sensations are there? What's going through your mind? Have you maybe gone, or excuse me, not gone, but have you maybe reached that limit of discomfort, been able to breathe through it, and now it's past? Let's find one more round of breath. And then very slowly coming up. All right. We'll bring our legs out long. Give them a little bit of a shake. And we are going to find a restorative pose. So something nice to open up the back. So finding your blanket. And in your blanket, or with your blanket, excuse me, you're going to find a long roll. So you'll know when you come down if maybe it's a little too thick, it will be uncomfortable. We want to be comfortable in this pose, okay? We're not sitting through discomfort in this pose. So when the blanket comes down onto the earth and when you lay back, you want it to come below the shoulder blades. So not under the shoulder blades, but below there. So you'll know if you're too high up, if when you come down, you can't bring your arms out into a T shape. Okay, so once you make your way down, lots of options here for your arms and for your legs. So perhaps it feels good for just your knees to be bent, knees come together, feet come wide on the mat. Perhaps the legs come out long, if that feels good for you. I know that if it's maybe a little bit uncomfortable in your low back once you bring your legs out long, maybe you find some pillows or blocks and place them underneath, say your thighs or the knees, wherever's comfortable. Okay, arms can be out in a T shape. If shoulders are uncomfortable, feel free to kind of slide your blanket down so that you're able to bring your arms down by your side, palms face up. Or perhaps you find cactus arms here. So notice what's going on with your low back. If there's any discomfort, you can always take some time here to windshield wiper the knees. Feet are wide on the mat. This can kind of help to release tension in the low back. Maybe you keep your knees bent. Whatever feels right for you in this pose. So now we just soften. See if you can take deep inhales in through your nose, into your diaphragm, and long, slow exhales out. So we come to this final shape in our bodies of relaxation here to remind us that after sitting through the discomfort, there is relief. So, a quote here by Pema Chodron. When we are able to stay even a moment with uncomfortable energy, we gradually learn not to fear it. So, you can stay here for a little bit longer or as long as you would like. Or if you're ready to, feel free to roll over to one side and then make your way into Shavasana or any final resting pose that feels good for you in your body. And I invite you to perhaps revisit the moments during practice where you were able to sit with the discomfort with grace. And allowing the next few minutes to be an opportunity to just be present with your breath. Allow your body to sink down into the earth, releasing all tension, especially around your eyes, softening your jaw, allowing the back of your head to sink and settle. Allowing your shoulders to sink down into the earth. Releasing any tension you feel in your hips. And with every exhale, perhaps you release tension just a little bit more. There's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to do. And no reason to change. Allow this to be your opportunity to relax and restore. Gently bringing your awareness back into the room. Perhaps making some small movements in your fingers and toes. Maybe those smaller movements become bigger movements. Gently rolling over to one side, whichever side is calling for you. And in your own time, making your way up to seated. And once you get there, lowering or closing your eyes. Taking deep inhales in through your nose, into your diaphragm, and long, slow exhales out. On your inhales, I invite you to inhale peace, love, and self compassion. On your exhales, releasing anything standing in your way. May you go in peace, love, joy, and gratitude. Thank you for joining me this evening. Have a beautiful evening.